Joining us now, KT McFarland. KT, wow, I see the Egypt military giving the president, Morsi, an ultimatum to clean up the problems in that country and calm down the protests, or else he's out. Are we looking at a major showdown here that could result in a military coup?
Yeah, sure. You know, if you think about a revolution, it's always a three-act play. I've said this before. Act one, everybody's united, get rid of the dictator. Act two, it's the rebels' turn to govern, and they're not very good at it. And then they start fighting amongst themselves, and that's what you see in Egypt now. Act three, either they do get it together and figure out some kind of a power-sharing, self-governing regime, or they don't, and that's when the dictators take over again. And I've got to tell you, I look at the way the Obama administration's handled it. They have never failed to do the wrong thing at the right time.
Yeah, KT, that was my next question. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of the interviews of some of the protesters there on the street, and a lot of them are talking about the same thing. We don't want this Muslim Brotherhood leadership. We don't want this Islamist lean that he's moving us toward in the guise of Morsi. We want a secular nation. We want freedom. And, you know, that should be, back in the old days, that would be something that the President of the United States would embrace. But he's given, well, what has he done here in terms of these protests?
Wrong thing. Every single step, he's done the wrong thing. First, when 2 years ago he helped topple Mubarak, remember he said Mubarak's got to go. All right, so we pulled the rug out of him, from under him, and then President Obama supported Morsi and the Muslim Brotherhood. Well, they got in office a year ago, and then while that Muslim Brotherhood government proceeded to grab power from the military, from the parliament, from the courts, the Obama administration said nothing, and then they ran the economy into the ditch. They said nothing. Now, half the population wants Morsi gone. As a result of his mismanagement of the economy, there are hour-long gas lines, waiting lines to get food. By the end of this year, Egypt is going to face food shortages because they don't have the money to pay for the wheat they need to import to feed their people. And now, President Obama is silent. He says, you guys work it out. Well, he should have been silent when they were trying to figure out how to govern themselves 2 years ago instead of intervening. And now that they're in this crisis, he should be intervening to say, look, you guys, we'll be the good officers, but what you need to do is the Muslim Brotherhood guys need to sit down with the protesters, under the good graces of the military, and you guys need to work this out, because guess what? The future is not good if you don't work it out.
All right, so pull back, if you would, for me, KT. Look at the entire region. We got Syria, all kinds of problems there. We got U.S. troops still in Jordan, right there on the border. Then you got what's going on in Egypt, a great deal of turmoil and uncertainty, talk of a military coup. I note this morning that the cost of a barrel of oil has gone up dramatically as a result of uncertainty about what's going on in the region. What do you think is sort of the worst-case scenario here as we look at the entire region?
Well, you look at the region. 2 years ago, that was a region from the Atlantic Ocean to the North Africa, to the Middle East, to the Persian Gulf, really all the way over to Pakistan, which for that part of the world was relatively stable, at peace, economic success, and pro-American. And now in 2 years, that entire region has gone to political and economic chaos and an anti-American bent throughout. Thank you very much. That's an accomplishment I don't think any administration's been able to do. Now, what do you do next, and what do you watch for? To me, the real choke point and checkpoint is the Suez Canal. Everybody's always worried about the Strait of Hormuz and the oil going through and the crisis with Iran that's brewing. The Sinai Peninsula is a place where bad guys can set up shop and easily take out tankers that are going through the Suez Canal. If that happens, then all the goods and it's mostly commercial goods, but some oil, has to then transit all the way around the southern coast of Africa to get to market. That's the one that's easy to have a problem with, difficult to fix, and that's what I'd watch as far as oil price.
Do you imagine that we are beefing up our Navy presence in that area?
Nope. I think just the opposite.
Really?
Yeah, we're pivoting to Asia. You guys didn't get the memo?
So let's zoom this out for a minute. I mean, you've got this turmoil in Egypt, which is really, I mean, the flashpoint is, it's right now, this is all going to develop over the Independence Day holiday, right,
yes,
in terms of the showdown with the military. And then you've got, of course, what's happening in Syria, and you've got a new president in Iran, and you've got the turmoil in Turkey. How is this going to play out in the Middle East? And does John Kerry have any idea what he's doing?
No, poor guy. He's doing the one thing that nobody cares about. He's trying to have shuttle diplomacy between the Israelis and the Palestinians.
Well, and don't forget global climate change.
Oh, yeah,
that's
climate
a big
change.
global warming is major.
I didn't get that memo either. Look, I was just in Israel 2 weeks ago. There is no prospect for an Israeli-Palestinian peace agreement. What Secretary Kerry ought to be focusing on is the fallout from the Snowden leaks, where the United States has been in a major way humiliated by China and Russia, and they've gotten away with it. The fact that the leaks themselves, there's more to come, more secret information that's coming out. And Syria, where we should be sitting it out, I mean, if you got two enemies killing each other, don't try to step in and stop them. And in Syria right now, the strongest rebel group is the guys who just beheaded the Catholic priest. Now, this is an al-Qaeda-affiliated rebel group versus the chemical weapons-toting Assad. I think they're both our enemies, and as long as we can provide humanitarian assistance, help shore up our neighbors in the region, like Jordan, and make sure we know where those chemical weapons are so they don't fall into the hands of any of the bad guys, then I think we don't belong in the middle of the Syrian civil war.
Yeah, and meanwhile, this thing in Egypt, it's going to be fascinating to watch from here, and also terrifying considering how large that nation is, how many people are there, and of course, let's remind everyone, they're right on Israel's border.
And the reason there's been peace between the Arabs and the Israelis for the last 40 years is because Israel and Egypt have had peace. If that stops, if the leadership of Egypt decides that they're going to blame all their problems on Israel, then you could see a whole nother situation in the Middle East that we have not seen in over a generation.
Well, luckily, KT, this president has been stalwart in his support of Israel. Oh, wait a minute. Hey, KT, have a great Independence Day.